In the 1600s, a wealthy merchant named Giles Donnel owned a large farm somewhere in colonial America. He sold lots of milk and butter to various settlements thanks to his cows. Built about a mile away from Bloomshurst, it was an easy target for would-be attackers, such as wolves, and raiding natives, but the farm had always been well guarded. On a summer night, Giles Donnel and his family woke up to a loud howling. It was not the sound of a wolf, more like someone screaming in a hateful tone. Though it was loud, it sounded distant, coming from the direction of the mountains. The two scared little girls went for their mother and hugged her tightly, while the eldest son Elias went to get his musket. The howling lasted a long while before it abruptly stopped. Giles and Elias start calming down the girls and Mrs. Donnel, promising they'll stay up and guard the house while they sleep. Giles and Elias took turns staying up to watch until morning. The next day, Giles walked to the farm to talk to the farm workers who were sleeping in cabins. They too heard the loud howling from the mountains. While everyone felt uneasy about last night, there was no obvious danger as everyone agreed that whatever made that noise was too far away. Later that night, the family woke up to the howling again, only this time it seemed to sound like it was closer than last time. Giles's wife was getting worried. He assured her that his workers will be staying up tomorrow to protect the farm and the family. The next day, Giles bought more muskets and pistols for his workers to stand watch at night to protect the property. Some did not want to, but did it anyway after Giles threatened to fire them. A few of them would sleep near the house so that the girls would feel safe, and even their loving uncle came to help, though Elias was sent to join the others protecting the farm. Elias was guarding alone near his side of the fence with his musket, keeping careful watch with his lantern up. The others were spread out throughout the property. The full moon kept the land lit with dim light. Everything seemed quiet until Elias heard a crash that sounded like it came from the barn. At first, he thought one of the farm hands had been clumsy and made a mess, but then he heard a scream, followed by a gunshot. This startled the cows, causing a stampede. Elias quickly threw his gun over the fence and climbed over it to the other side while holding his lantern so that he would not get trampled. A horn of a bull almost impaled him before he hopped off the fence. From the other side of the fence, he gathered his things and rushed toward the barn through the clearing. As he got closer, he could vaguely see from the dim moonlight a huge hole on the side of the barn facing the woods. One of the men appeared next to the fence and barn, pointed his musket towards the woods, and opened fire. Elias shouted at the man to ask what was going on. The gunman replied that something from the woods had attacked his friend. Elias then noticed smoke coming from the barn. There was a fire. Moments later, people were running with buckets filled with water to put out the flame. Others threw dirt at it with their shovels. By the time Giles made it to the farm to see what was happening, the fire had already claimed the barn, but the men there managed to prevent it from spreading to the woods and the rest of the property. While Giles Donnel was trying to figure out what caused the fire, everyone started to notice that someone was missing. Levi Fulton, the stableman, was in charge of guarding the door of the barn before the chaos. He was nowhere to be found. The men shouted and searched for him throughout the property while Giles talked with Elias and the gunman. It wasn't long before Levi was found hiding in an empty stall, shaking on the ground, eyes wide open with fear. He was brought to Giles and had to be calmed down before he was able to utter a word. While guarding outside the barn with his pistol, Levi heard what sounded like wood breaking loudly from behind him. He opened the door and picked up his lantern to take a look inside. At first, all he saw was dust in the air before hearing thumping noises that were getting closer and closer. Then, all of a sudden, he saw a giant, hairy, human-like creature that was hunched over, quickly moving towards him. It was almost as tall as the barn. Levi remembered its large, black, beady eyes giving off a small reflection of his lantern. Its mouth was wide open, showing off its teeth. It was almost as if it was smiling. Its torso swayed from side to side, giving it sudden charge and a natural look to it. During this split second, the panicked man screamed, as he fell back, dropping his lantern, causing him to lose sight of the creature. He instinctively fired his pistol where he believed the creature was. As he scrambled to his feet and ran, he could hear the thundering footsteps going towards the other direction. The other gunman rushed through the darkness towards the scene from a few yards away. He made it just in time to hear the voice of his friend scream for help while also hearing something rustling through the woods. Not wasting any time, he ran towards the fence and shot where he heard the sound, and that was when Elias showed up. It was determined that the fallen lantern was still burning and caught the hay-filled ground on fire, which quickly spread throughout the barn. The men, now scared, had wanted to leave. They didn't even want to care if they got fired at this point. They were convinced to stay by Elias, who was well respected and well liked. However, nobody wanted to go back to their post alone, so it was agreed they'd group near the burned barn where the monster last attacked. Later that night, the men heard the howling again, and it was definitely close. One of them closed his ears because it was so loud. Another fired aimlessly at the direction where he thought the howling came from in a vague attempt to either wound it or scare it off. It seemed like it would last forever until it stopped after a long while. Things were quiet for the rest of the night. The ranchers managed to gather all the runaway cows back into the farm while Levi had to be sent to his wife back in town so he could relax and calm down. Giles had the men chop down the trees near where the barn stood, both for lumber that he could use to rebuild, and to remove the cover of the thick wood. All manner of traps were set everywhere outside of the property, even though the men weren't confident any of them could stop a huge monster. Word spread to the town of Bloomhurst. People began to fear that the monster might attack their town next. Extra measures of protection took place in the following nights, though after several nights without incident, things went back to normal. Levi Fulton never returned to the farm. It would take a few days before he would send his wife to inform Giles that he was not willing to work there anymore. Soon, he and his wife moved out of town to some place far away. The family and farm workers still hear loud howls from the mountains sometimes at night. However, it sounded more distant each night. They eventually stopped hearing it after 2 months. The creature was finally gone.